Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Monthly Blend, a monthly video podcast brought to you by Next, powered by Shulman Rogers and Connectpreneur. I'm Tian Wong, founder and host of the Connectpreneur community. We're a global community of over 30,000 investors, founders, and business leaders. And I'm also the CEO of Opus 8, and we help companies and fund managers raise money through our network of over 4,000 accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the U.S. Along with my co-host, Anthony Millen, who's the founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, we're pleased to bring you this monthly video podcast, which covers trends, information, and fascinating interviews with game changers and newsmakers here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore Metroplex. And Anthony and I started this podcast about 3 years ago as a way to increase awareness of cool, innovative happenings in our region, to break down silos, and to serve as a mechanism to do our part to help bring the region together and help foster innovation and entrepreneurship here. Today, we're diving into the future of DC's startup ecosystem, early stage funding, and economic development with two outstanding guests. We'll explore how entrepreneurs, investors, and policymakers can work together to drive growth and innovation in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'd like to introduce Paige Soya, who's the managing partner of K Street Capital, which is now managing the new $26 million DC Venture Capital Fund. Welcome, Paige.
Thanks for having me, Anthony and team. It's great to see you both.
And with Paige, we have Adam Lattimore, who leads strategic initiatives and policy for the DC Deputy Mayor's Office, otherwise known as DMPED, and is shaping policies that will impact startups, tech, and innovation in our region. Hi, Adam.
Hi, thank you for that introduction, and happy to be here.
Great. We're thrilled to have you guys. Now I'd like to turn things over to my co-host, Anthony Millen, who is a serial entrepreneur. He's a venture capitalist, as well as one of the nation's leading startup attorneys. Anthony is the founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. And Next is disrupting the way legal services are being delivered. They have a unique fixed price structure, which allows for expert legal advice at a very manageable way for early stage companies to manage their legal costs. And in the last 3 years, Next has been recognized by winning Legal Week's Startup Emerging Law Firm of the Year, as well as Legal Week's Best Law Firm for Enabling Startup Success. They've also been a finalist for the American Lawyer's Most Innovative Law Firm Award. Anthony, congratulations, and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Tian. Paige and Adam, welcome. It's great to have you on the show today. Where I'd like to start the conversation, just given your unique positions in the DC startup ecosystem, is to just hear a little bit about how you found the climate for startups and entrepreneurs in this past year, 2024, and how you've seen this evolution of the startup ecosystem over the last several years.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that. I think also it's interesting to say that I've been in DC now for a full decade. And when I first came to DC, it was a very different startup ecosystem than it is today. And I just think it's important to recognize that startup ecosystems anywhere, they take a lot of time to develop. And, when I was first here 10 years ago, I think a lot of the investment in DC, a lot of the original angel investors and VCs that made investments in some of those initial entrepreneurs that were here have now been successful and have had big exits and now have unicorn level companies. And that then breeds a lot more startups and a lot more investment in the region. And, of course, back then there was no venture capital program through the district at all. And now we have that today. So it's come a long way. And I mean, maybe this is controversial to say, but if you're talking about the past year, I do feel like the startup ecosystem in DC has been exploding.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, over the last year, we've seen not only an increasing number of startups, come to DC or start here in DC, but we've also seen an expanding number of programs that are focused on these startups, or focused on sort of supporting the entrepreneurs behind them, the founders behind them. And the VC fund, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, is just sort of one way that the district is trying to sort of capitalize on some of this natural movement that we've seen in the ecosystem.
All ecosystems kind of have their own pulse and things that make them special. What are some of the things that you think make our DC regional ecosystem special?
Well, I always start out by saying this one thing that maybe isn't what you're looking for, but I'll just tell you, like, we've seen a lot of we invest all across the US, not just in DC, but most of our investment is in this area, just because that's where our network has been. That's where we've seen a lot of the talent. But we've seen a lot of our companies that we've invested in and companies we've looked at move into DC recently, even more in the last 5 years, 2 years, in the last year especially. And I think that's because it's a great place to live. And it's a great place to work. And if you have a business in a regulated market, for example, which more and more businesses fall into regulated markets, it's a great place to be in terms of understanding policy and having a connection to it and having a voice in it. And also, if you are a company that sells to the government or has any sort of government partnerships, this ends up being a very important place to have a presence.
Another area that I've also found is really great in this area is just the general support that founders and other supporters of startups provide each other. There is a real community aspect to being a startup company in this area. Is that something you see a lot of, Adam?
I think that that's actually one of the things that has changed the most over the last couple of years for DC is this support system that has been created for startup founders and entrepreneurs. I mean, when I think about the community that we have here in the district, I think about organizations that are doing great work, like, DC Tech and Venture Coalition with their DC Tech Meetup program that recently just won sort of like the top tech programming of the year through Technically. I think of Halcyon and all the work that they're doing to try to make sure that there's a community around these founders. I mean, I've been with DMPED now for about a year. And so my real mission for this last year was to really dive in and to meet all of the people that I could who are really making this ecosystem tick. And I'll tell you, it has been a lot, right? There's so many people that are doing great work, from Connectrepreneur to DC Startup and Tech Week, right? Like there are just so many different circles that you can get into here. If you are someone who is passionate about startups or who's passionate about tech, there's really any number of communities that you can get into to support your success.
And as you look to the future, and again, both of you are leaders and in leadership positions within the ecosystem, what would you say would be some future goals and initiatives that other leaders working together with both of you and this group working together can do and unite around to continue to strengthen the ecosystem and counter some of the difficulties and challenges? If you were able to illustrate that a little bit, that would be great.
I mean, I think a lot of, Adam, what you were saying about all these different ecosystems and communities overlapping has been a great support network for founders and entrepreneurs in DC. But I do think there could be more of it. Like a lot of these pockets just sort of like stay in their pockets and they don't know about all of the other pockets. And I think just connecting and figuring out that connective tissue to overlap them so that we have these sort of economies of scale between these relationships is going to be critical. But it's already, the genesis of that is already there for sure. And then the second thing I would say is, this is like one of the wealthiest areas in the country. I think of the top 10 zip codes, 4 of them are 4 of the wealthiest top 10 zip codes are in this area. And as a result, there's a lot of opportunity for angel investment. And we don't have as much angel investment as other cities do that aren't as wealthy as we are. So it's, DC has traditionally been thought of as having a low risk tolerance for that type of asset class. But now that it's been growing and we've created more founders and more investors who understand it and have seen returns from it, I think that's starting to change. But there's a lot of opportunity there to do it, especially in underrepresented communities where you have like non-traditional investors who maybe aren't exposed to venture or they've never made an angel investment or they don't know how it works, but they are an accredited investor and they could participate in this market. They just don't know where to start. And I think there's just a ton of opportunity there, especially because there's no limit to the amount of funding that early stage companies need, especially in DC.
To Paige's first point, I just want to say that I 100% agree. I think that something that we're specifically focused on at DMPED is increasing the connectivity between these sort of circles that we're talking about, right? And so we have a lot of the support systems. We've got the communities that, entrepreneurs can go to, but there's more that we can do to make sure that those groups are talking to universities to figure out sort of what their priorities are in their research, that we're connecting them to the federal entities that we have right in our backyard so they can understand what the priorities are from a procurement standpoint or from a research standpoint. And so I think that one of the priorities for us is really making sure that we're building long-lasting partnerships between private and public entities that can not only compete for large pools of resources, but also sort of streamline our efforts, both within DC, but then also thinking regionally to our partners in Maryland and Virginia to figure out, how can we participate on the scale of, a multi-state partnership to really progress these goals that we want to achieve as a region.
And I think both of those points are so important, just the coordination among different groups. And also this concept of tapping in and exposing more high net worth individuals to the opportunities that could exist from angel investing. I think both will have a significant impact. I'd like to turn now to the very exciting announcement from Mayor Muriel Bowser at the end of 2024, announcing the $26 million DC Venture Capital Fund, which is going to be managed by K Street Capital. And this is such an exciting development for the region and such an exciting initiative. And it'd be great to hear a little bit more about this new fund, who it's targeting, how capital will be deployed, and the impact you both believe it's going to have on early stage startups in DC.
We were so excited to be able to talk about finally this project at the end of 2024. And we were super happy to have Mayor Muriel Bowser and Deputy Mayor Albert be able to sort of share this project, which has been a long time coming for the district, right? And so this is a $26 million program that's funded by the Treasury through the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And those funds are meant to sort of go directly to small business support. And so the venture capital program is just one piece of the pie here. The district received $62 million to do programming in total. A lot of that is with our Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, who are doing credit and loan support to small businesses. So I want to make sure that we tag them in here so that they get some recognition too. But the $26 million in the venture capital program is super catalytic for us, right? I think something that we've heard as a government agency, but also as an ecosystem for quite some time, is that we need to increase our ability to participate in the venture ecosystem and to support startup companies with seed funding to really, propel them into the growth stage that we want to see. And so we're really excited about this program. We're really happy to have K Street Capital on as our program administrator. Paige and I work closely all the time, but just to sing some of their praises, I think, K Street Capital was chosen because of their deep connections to the district and to the ecosystem that's been building here over the course of the last, 10 years. And so we're really looking forward to the work that we can accomplish together.
I couldn't echo the excitement more, Adam, because we, like you said, this has been a long time of building and getting to the point where we actually have this program launched. And it's a huge step for DC. And I will just say, from my perspective, it is just the beginning. Like this is the beginning. And if we're successful in this program and we see the results from it, which I know we will, it can be bigger and we can do more things to support the startup ecosystem here. So that's just it's going to be an incredible asset for the ecosystem. And that being said, I'll just share a little bit about what we're looking for in managers and sort of how the program's been rolled out. We recently launched it. We're doing information sessions right now. We actually have 2 more coming up in March and May. And hold on to tell you the exact dates of those.
March 18th and May 13th.
Perfect. Thank you. And all fund managers are welcome to join. It's an opportunity to learn more about the program, what we're looking for in managers, and to understand sort of our objectives with it, and also just to open it up to Q&A and get to meet people who are considering applying. I think they might be a fit for this program. So I would encourage everyone that's listening that could be an eligible fund manager to come. And that being said, we do want the program to be successful. So we're looking for fund managers who are experienced. It's not, we may invest in one or two first time or smaller funds, but we're really looking for managers that have a track record. And we want to have sort of a diverse group of managers in the sense that we want some that have been investing in DC for a long time and they already have a connection to the network and the ecosystem, and they are already putting money into these DC startups, and now they'll be able to put even more money in through this program, through our investment. But we also want to pull in some managers who maybe don't have as much of a connection to DC, but they're interested. And if they had that tie and access to the deal flow here that we've seen at K Street Capital and a lot of other funds have seen, they would invest. And it's a way to sort of bring in other private capital that might not otherwise have been interested in this region. So we're very excited about that.
You talked about the fund of funds process, but the fund specifically for DC is focusing, we structured it so that it was broad. It's specifically focusing on tech or tech-enabled businesses. So tech, obviously, we don't need to sort of explain what that looks like, but for tech-enabled, let's say your company doesn't necessarily create a proprietary technology, but it leverages technology in the pursuit of its mission or the pursuit of its sort of services. That also qualifies. And so our goal here is to support tech or tech-enabled startups in the district, specifically those that are located here or who will commit to locating here after receiving investment. And then in addition, we're sort of thinking about some of the broader sectors of tech that we want to prioritize, right? And so the district has been engaged in a sector strategy exercise to sort of figure out what are the subsectors within tech that we are best positioned to, attract, grow, and retain. And so those have sort of been identified as AI, cybersecurity, fintech, and then some other extras like climate tech, med tech, and some of the ones that we already currently have a good system of here in the district.
For all of these technology and tech-enabled companies, in the marketplace, I think for those first investments that will really get them going, this is going to be really important.
Congrats, guys. That's very exciting. And I have a few questions. I want to start with Adam regarding building an innovation-ready city. So, your office is obviously at the center of shaping DC's economic future. Aside from this awesome fund initiative, what are the biggest bets that DC is making right now to become a top-tier hub for startups, tech, and innovation? And are there any new initiatives or policy changes coming up in the new year that startups should be paying attention to?
Yeah, so first, I want to double down on what I mentioned earlier, which is, in terms of big bets, we're really going to be doubling down on those sectors that I just talked about and sort of finding ways to, one, recruit some major companies, some major large companies to the district who might be looking for an HQ relocation, but also expanding the services that we provide to some of the startups in other parts of the spectrum. So thinking from the individual entrepreneur who has an idea but just needs, $10,000 to get, something started, to some more growth stage companies, right? And so the district right now has the Vitality Fund, which we use as sort of our main attraction mechanism for businesses. We're thinking about ways that we can sort of tweak that to be a little bit more flexible for companies that are not sort of the ones that have been traditionally targeted for that program. But we're also thinking about some of the other tools in our arsenal that we can start to tweak or adjust. And so while I don't have anything that I could share for FY25, I will tell you that we are looking at FY26, just the timing of things, right? We're now looking at what the budget looks like for fiscal year 26 for the district. And we are putting forward some recommendations on new programs that we can use to provide funding to groups that are, doing entrepreneurship development or research or other different areas that we know currently the district does not have a mechanism to support. So I'm hoping to be able to share more with you all soon on that. But I want just to, share with the listeners that this is something that DMPED is extremely focused on, right? The mayor has put forward very broad goals for the district to attract or to create 36,000 new jobs by 2028. And we see tech as a major way to do that. We know that not only are there a wide variety of tech jobs, but they are also very well-paying jobs. And so we see the district as really well positioned to get a very good number of those and to make progress towards the mayor's 36,000 jobs goal.
Paige, as far as capital for startups, K Street Capital has been around for a while, and you guys have played a huge role in early stage investing. Do you mind sharing your investment philosophy and what makes an investee company stand out to your team? And also, along those lines, what advice do you have for first-time founders who are looking to raise capital in today's market, which is not exactly easy?
It never is. It never is it? But I will say, just taking a step back to remind everyone, K Street started out as a traditional volunteer-run angel group, just pulling capital amongst accredited investors who wanted to support early-stage startups, and we still do that today. So we have, I believe, the largest DMV network of active angel investors who commit capital to these startups every year, and that's still a big part of K Street's structure. We also have our own fund that makes venture capital investments, and then we also manage this fund-to-fund funds program that invests in fund managers. So we do all these things, and we've actually, at this point, I think we've made about over 120 investments into 75 companies, mostly in the region, but all across the country. And our thesis has always been early stage tech companies in regulated markets, mainly because of our proximity to DC and our relationship with a lot of our investors and their access to deal flow and our ability to just understand the direction of those markets and the things that are going to shape them, where the opportunities and the risks might be. But when I say regulated markets, I just want to clarify that doesn't mean it's a gov tech startup, doesn't mean it's a reg tech startup. It just means that they operate in a regulated market. So it really covers a lot of ground: fintech, climate tech, cybersecurity, health tech. There are very few markets that the government doesn't touch at all these days. So we do see quite a variety of startups, and in DC, I will say, like, DC has it's not really just one area of startups in DC. There's actually quite a number and quite a breadth across industries, which is something most people don't know. And then I think you asked me
First time founders, yeah,
yes, first time founders advice for fundraising
today, yeah.
I would say a big piece of advice is to understand what your valuation is and the relationship between that and the amount of capital you are trying to raise, because investors are thinking about that. And especially now, when we see really high valuations, like, the appetite for investing in those companies is a lot lower unless there's a lot more traction or there's a lot less time between today and the day when they think they're going to be able to exit from that company. So I think that's important to think about for startups. And also, just like, in today's world, it's a lot easier to build a startup and get something off the ground bootstrapped before you raise. So as much as I could encourage you as a founder to try to get as far as you can with your MVP or wherever you are, and even if you can get some customer sales before you raise any money, it's going to be better off for you, and it's going to be a lot easier to raise that capital ultimately.
Question about attracting and retaining top talent for both of you guys. Obviously, one of the DC's big hurdles is talent retention. We have great educational institutions, a lot of smart people here, but many of them leave to go to New York, San Fran, Boston, Austin, and other sort of hot spots. What can we in the DMV do to retain this top tier tech talent? And how can investors and founders contribute to building a stronger talent pipeline? Because if we're going to, you mentioned 38,000 new jobs. I mean, that's going to, we're going to have to attract people and retain people. So maybe we can start with you, Adam. What are your thoughts on that?
This is something that definitely keeps me up at night, and definitely keeps the deputy mayor up at night. We talk about it a lot. I think the statistic actually is like, an average state retains about 60 to 65% of its graduates. The district holds on to something like 19%, right? And so a lot of bright minds come here, they go to school here, and then they leave. And there's a couple things that I think that we can do to start to stem that sort of like flow out of talent. And I think one of them is we can do a better job of communicating that the district is not just a single company town, right? And that there are more opportunities here than just policy and government. And so something that we've been thinking about is a dedicated marketing campaign around what we want to do and where the city's going on tech, including who the existing businesses are that are here, what the major unicorn companies are that are in the area. But marketing only goes so far, right? We also need to develop some programs, both at the city level, but in the private sector and in the university sectors as well, that sort of take the talent that they have and put them directly into the workforce here in the district so that they can find that first job here. They can get that first internship. They can then, step outside of the university walls and sort of experience and see all the different things that DC has to offer. And so we're looking forward to continuing to deepen our relationships with universities here like Georgetown, GW, Howard, American, and the various others to start to create some programs and some workforce, initiatives that start to figure out how we can keep more of DC's talent in DC after they graduate.
I don't know if I have some great solution to this problem, but I will say that, like I was mentioning earlier, it takes time for these things to develop. And if you want people to come to your city, if talented people to come to your city, you have to be building really exciting things. And if you're not doing that, then people aren't going to come, and they're not going to want to come. They're not going to want to participate in that sort of ecosystem. And so I think the more startups we end up having here, and the more we have success with those companies, and the more that they grow, which takes time, the more you're going to see influx of talent and talent staying here, which is the ultimate goal.
How can our viewers learn more about your respective organizations for founders, investors, and innovators who are watching, and how can they engage with you all? And are there any upcoming events or programs or resources that you would recommend?
Go to our website first, K Street Capital. It's kstreet.vc, www.kstreet.vc. And we also have a newsletter you can sign up for, which is where we post a lot of our events and a lot of the things we're doing, both in DC and across the country. And we post a lot on LinkedIn, so you can. That's another great place to look. And then lastly, like if you really want to get to know us as an organization and understand who our investors are and the companies that we've invested in and how we think about our investment philosophy and all of that, we have our own podcast too, and we interview all of our portfolio companies and a lot of our investors and other co-investors in the area. So it's a great place to start.
Very cool. Thank you for that. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find information on most of DMPED's initiatives or grants on dmped.dc.gov. You can also go to obviouslydc.com. I think that's one of our legacy websites that we have that sort of maps what our initiatives and our programs are. But for me specifically, I have said this for as long as I've sort of been in this role, which is that I'm willing to meet with anyone and anyone, to talk about everyone and anyone, to talk about, DC tech and what the district can be doing better and the ways that we can support. So, my email is out there. It's adam.lattimore1@dc.gov. Maybe not the best thing to give out your email on a podcast, but we're going to do it. If anyone wants to meet with me and talk, have coffee, and just talk about, the things that you've seen in the ecosystem, the things that the district has done well, the things that we can do better. I want to be able to take that feedback and really turn it into action. So really looking forward to engaging.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for your feedback, and I wish you the very best this year. We're all counting on you guys to contribute heavily, and you have some great ambitious plans, and we're pulling for you guys. Let me turn it back over to Anthony.
Want to just again thank you, Paige and Adam, for joining us. And on behalf of Tian and I, just thank you for all you do for our regional ecosystem and the leadership role that you both play in helping drive it forward.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate that. And this was incredible. Thanks for having us on the show.